Hello. Before I start my presentation, let me introduce myself. My name is Christian AMADOR, and I'm about to explain our equipment reservation validation system. First, let me show you our output here. First, you have here a requester's name where you put your requester's name, like example Mark Amador. You put your requester's name, and then we have a equipment category, and then a drop down where you can pick your category here, and then a couple of checkboxes, and then another checkbox for the priority handling. And then here we have the reserve button, and then below the reserve button, that's where our output will appear, like this. You pick this, there you can see our output. Now to our JavaScript. Now first, going to our JavaScript, the first thing we do at the top is here, grab the category drop down, the device checkbox container, and then the reserve button. We use a get element by ID so we can work with them throughout the program. Then of course we attach a change event listener to the drop down, so every time the user picks a category, this function runs. The first thing it does inside the program, once you run it, is it first clears out the whatever that is inside the checkboxes that were there before, because if the user switches categories, we don't want any residue of the previous inputs from the checkbox. We don't want them mixing with our new ones. And then next, to do that, we get to the first child. The first child here. The first child. So the first child of the container. Then we get to the first child container of the container, and then we loop through using next sibling. We loop using next sibling to move to the next one, and then we call the remove child. We call the remove child to take each one out, of the ones out. And then we save the next sibling before removing, because once you remove the node, you lose your reference to what comes after it. Yeah, that's my presentation here. Now, thank you for listening.
So before we start, I would like to introduce myself. I am JULLIE BARINA, and I'm the one who will be continuing what Mark started. So after clearing the old checkboxes, we now figure out which devices to show based on what category was selected. So as you can see here, we have 3 defined arrays, one for computer, so you can see what's the content, and one for networking devices, and one for multimedia equipment. Then we check the value of the drop down using this if-else statement so we can assign the right array to this device list, which is the device list is essentially empty array. So then once we know which devices to show, we first create a label using this create element and a text node with a text selected devices, and append it to the container so the user knows what the checkboxes are for. Then we loop through device list array for each device, and we create a label using create element, so we can wrap everything in. Then inside that, we create an input element and use set attributes to set its type to checkbox and its value to device name, and its class also to device checkbox. So we'll use that class name later when collecting which one were checked. Then we also create a text node with a device name and append it beside the checkbox inside the wrapper label. Then we append the whole wrapper to the container and add a line break after it, so each checkbox appears on its own line. So that is all for this video.
My name is OMAR and I will present the validation for our equipment reservation system. So starting off, when the user clicks the reserve button, we will collect all of the inputs using get element by ID. So we will get the requester name input, priority checkbox, output message, and the reservation form which contains everything. So up next is that we will reset any previous error styles. So um, the requester name input, when it is invalid, its border will be red. Then category dropdown, its background color will be pink if the user did not select any of the options. Then next, we have a output message that states um, an error message if the input fields are not filled out. So to reset all of that, we will set its style, that border property to its default. Same thing with category dropdown. Then next, with output message, we will have to create a new element because this is a we believe the solution is much more efficient than iterating all of the child nodes of of the output message and deleting it using for loop iteration. So what we did in our solution is that we created a new element p paragraph, and then set its attribute to output message, which is the same. So as you can see here, is the ID is output message. So basically, what we did is that we created this new line. So here, then we get a reference of the parent of the output message. So using output message, get its parent node. So after building our um, after creating our element, our paragraph element with its ID, we will now replace the child in the parent of our output message. So output parent that replace child. So this is our previous child, and this is the new paragraph that we will use to replace the previous one. So let's set the output message to our newly created element paragraph element. So now just collect the requester name using requester name input that value. Same with category. Just get its values. Then next, we will collect all of the check devices using get elements by class name. As you will remember um, from our for the functionality of category dropdown, all of the checkboxes here have its values will be set to its attributes will be set to its class name attribute will be set to device checkbox. So all of it will have its classes set to device checkbox, and we will collect all of those. so that we will be able to iterate through all of it to check which of those are selected. So now we will need a selected devices array in which we will put all of the values of the checkboxes here, and that this selected devices array will be used to be printed out in our output um, output message output message to print out all of the reserved devices. So now let's iterate through all of the um, device checkboxes. It is an HTML collection, so now we can use all of the elements um, and use the dot check property to see if if the checkboxes has been checked or selected by the user. So now selected devices, basically we will now store it to our array. We will store the checkbox value inside the array. So now after that, we will now check um, all of the input fields if it is valid or filled out. So now check for the requester name. If it is empty, set its style that border to um, 2px solid red, and let's mark invalid to true. If selected category um, is equals to empty or no value, let's um, let's set this background color to light pink. This means that if the user did not select through any of the option, let's set this background color to light pink, and let's mark is invalid is equals to true. Then if the selected device that length is equals to zero is equals to zero, let's mark it as invalid. So here, as you can see, this is our collection of selected devices. If the user did not select any of the device, it means um, they will have, uh, let's mark it as invalid because they must choose from the devices list. So here we will determine if the user actually selected any of the devices, because if it is zero, if our array is zero, it means they didn't. So now if priority checkbox is not been checked, let's set the is invalid. Let's mark the is invalid to true. That is all for our validation for our um, equipment reservation validation system.
My name is Jose Paul APARICE. So here, after the four validation pass, the program proceeds to create the confirmation report. Then here we didn't use the inner HTML because we built everything using the DOM methods like create element, create text node, and append child. So first, we create the both element for the title reservation confirmation and append it to the output message. After that, we add a break line to insert a line break to separate the title from the next information, which is the text node of requester. And then append append the output message. Then we create the span element containing the requester name. Then we set the color of the span to blue to highlight the requester name. Then after that, we create a text node containing the value of the requester's name, name variable. Then append the text node inside the span, and then append the span to the output message. Then we add a new line. Then next is we display the next is the displaying the category. So here we create the text node of category and append the output message. And then we we create an italic element that contains the selected category name and append uh, append append the append it to the output, and then we add a new break line. Then for the displaying the reserved device, we create a text node that reserve devices and append the output message, then followed by the next break line. Then for the list of devices, we create an ordered list uh, element here. Then we loop through the selected devices array using for loop. And for each devices, we create a list item, and each item is styled with light green background. So there's a padding, margin button, border radius, then width. Then after the loop finish, we adjust the order list margin to 0. So to have a proper alignment and append the whole list for the output paragraphs. And then last is we set the text color of the output message to black to ensure everything is readable.
Hello po sir, I'm JOMAR AQUINO, and in this part of the code will runs after the reservation form is confirmed po, and it's the main purpose is to lock the form so the user cannot change anything anymore, and it also changes the form color to show that the process is already finished. And let's start about the explaining the code. And in this first line, in this part, in this code, we'll disable the name input field, and this means the user can no longer type or edit their name after submitting the form. Next is in this part, the category drop down disabled. In this part, and this part, in this code, I mean, this code disable the category drop down menu, and this prevents the user from changing the selected category. And the next part is the priority checkbox that disable, and in this code, disable the priority checkbox after the confirmation, and that means the user can no longer check or uncheck the priority option. And after that, the reserve button is also a disable in this part. This means this stops the user from clicking the reserve button again and submitting the form multiple times. And next, in this loop, in in this loop po, this in this loop through all the devices checkboxes and in this loop goes through each checkbox and in the list of the devices, and for every checkbox it finds it is set disabled to true, which means the user cannot select or unselect any device anymore. And for example, if the form has check boxes for laptop, projector, and the tablet, all of them will become disabled. And finally, in in this part, in this code changes the background color of the form, and this will change the form's color to light yellow, and this acts as a visual signal to the user that the reservation process is already complete. And that's all. And to summarize, all our program is use several things from our lesson, from the previous lessons, and um, we use or my group use get element by ID and get element by class name to find the elements in the page, and we use create element, create text node, and append child um, to create and display the output. And we also use remove child and replace child to clear or reset elements. And for moving around the DOM, we use a per node, first node, and next sibling. And we also use a set attribute to set elements attributes and add event listener to user actions. And also we also use the style property to change how elements look depending on what happens in the program. And that's all. Thank you po.